Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be part one of my bra making adventures. So this is my first time attempting to make a bra, and I really did not feel like going through the process of buying a bra pattern and then altering it to fit because I was really worried about getting the fitting right. So instead, I decided to cut up one of my old bras that was worn out and that I really loved the fit of. It was my favorite bra, but my dog unfortunately had gotten a hold of it, and so there were some holes in it from where he chewed on it. So, anyways, I decided to cut up that bra and then make a pattern out of it, and then sew up another version of that same bra using the pattern that I made. So today is part one where I'm showing you how I made the pattern out of my old bra, and then in the next video I'll show you how to cut out and sew up the new bra. So as a little teaser here, I have the finished bra, and for the most part I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So stay tuned for the next video, but today I'm going to show you how to cut up the bra and make a pattern that fits. Okay, so here's the bra I'm working with, and before I decided to start filming, I'd actually already seam ripped off one of the straps and one of the sides of the back clasp. So now I'm just going to seam rip off the other strap as well as the other back clasp using my seam ripper. And I'm just trying to be as careful as possible when I do this that I don't rip the actual fabric, because I want to make my pattern a true representation of the actual pattern that they used when they put this bra together originally. So I don't want to rip it and then lose part of the fabric that should be a part of the pattern. Next, I'm just going to seam rip one side of the bra away from that center bridge. And we really only are going to need to completely deconstruct one side of the bra unless you want to save, for example, the underwires. Then you would want to seam rip both sides to get both underwires out. But to make the pattern, we only need one side of the bra. So we only need to completely deconstruct one of the cups in order to make our pattern. Next, I'm going to deconstruct the cup that we seam ripped off. And to do that, I'm going to pull the underwire out. Then I'm going to seam rip off the wire casing as well as the fabric cover that's covering up the cup. And I'm also going to detach the back band from the cup. Next, I seam ripped the center bridge off of the cup that's still intact. And I also ended up deconstructing the rest of the cup and taking the channeling off and pulling out the underwire and all that, but that's really not necessary unless you want to save your underwires. You really just need that center bridge piece to make your pattern piece for the bridge of your bra. So now we've got all the pieces that we need to make the bra pattern. We just need the foam cup, the back band, and that center bridge piece. That's literally all we need out of the bra in order to make our pattern. I also ended up saving the hardware from the bra for future projects. So I saved the underwires, the clasps as well as the straps, just in case I wanted to use them later. Next, I needed to add a seam to my bra cup, so I drew that seam on by trying it on and then deciding where I wanted the seam to be. So I drew that nice shape, and then I just cut right along that line that I drew. And this is just because I'm going to be using cut and sew foam to make my cups, because I don't have pre-made cups in this shape. So I'm just adding in a nice seam so that I can actually sew up cups that look just like this. And so now we have all the pieces ready to start tracing out our bra pattern. So I've got some pattern paper, and I'm going to start with my 2 cup pieces. So I'm just going to lay them onto the pattern paper, and I'm going to maintain the same orientation of the pieces so that I know which edges of the pattern pieces go together. And then I'm just going to trace around the pattern pieces. And then I'm just going to mark which is the top and which is the bottom of each of my pattern pieces. And I'm also going to mark which side is the seam, the center seam of the cups, and which side is the center front and the side seam of the cups. Next, I'm just going to grab my French curve ruler and use it to just smooth out those curves on my pattern pieces. And that's the cups pattern done. All the seam allowances in the cup should already be included because we seam ripped the cup without cutting off the seam allowances and then traced it. And I'm also not going to add any seam allowance to the center cup seam because I'm going to sew that with a method that uses no seam allowance. So now I'm just going to cut these cups out and go on to the next pattern piece. So next I'm going to trace that little center bridge triangle shaped piece, and that's pretty easy to trace. And once I get it traced, I'm just going to add seam allowance to the top and the bottom edges. The seam allowance along the 2 sides of this pattern piece are already included because I seam ripped it off of the cup without cutting off the seam allowance, so I only need to add my seam allowance to the top and the bottom edge. So I added 1/4 inch seam allowance along the top and the bottom. Next, I'm going to trace off the back band pattern piece. So I'm just going to lay it on my pattern paper and trace around it just like I did with all the other pieces. And once I get the back band traced, I'm going to pull out the elastic that I plan on using for this project because I want to make sure that if I need to make alterations to accommodate the size of the elastic or the size of the back clasp, that I do that to my pattern now. So when I checked the size of the back clasp against the size of my pattern, I found that I did need to make the pattern wider where the back clasp attaches to the back band. So I went ahead and just marked how much wider I needed to make it. And I actually should have made it a little bit narrower because eventually I found that it didn't fit as well into the clasp as I wanted, but it worked out okay. And I'm also checking the strap elastic and marking how much wider I need to make my pattern where the strap attaches to the bra. Next, I grabbed my French curve ruler and I just drew in some nice new curves to connect the new alteration lines I just made with the original pattern. I also went ahead and just smoothed out all the other curves in this back band pattern piece just to make everything look nice and smooth. Then I just grabbed my straight edge ruler and I added a 1/4 inch seam allowance to the bottom edge of this pattern piece as well as the 2 top edges on either side of the strap attachment area. And this was just because these edges were left raw on my original pattern, but I did not want to leave them raw when I sew this up, so I added in seam allowance because they weren't included in the original bra. Alright, and that is the back band pattern piece done, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this pattern piece out. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is make pattern pieces for the fabric covering for the cup. So I'm going to start by just tracing off these original pattern pieces that I already made, and then we'll alter it from there to make the fabric cover pattern pieces. So I'm starting by adding a 1/4 inch seam allowance to both sides of that center cup seam. Next, I'm going to add a 3/4 inch seam allowance to the side of the bra cup, which is going to be the underarm edge. And then I also added 3/4 inch to the bottom edge of the cup on both cup pieces, the side cup as well as the front cup. And finally, I just added 1/2 inch along the top edge of the cup pieces on both the side cup and the front cup pattern piece. Alright, and we're done with all our pattern pieces, so I'm just going to cut out these last two pattern pieces with my rotary cutter. Alright, so the bra pattern is done, and let me just quickly recap all the pieces that we have here. We have the fabric cover pieces for the cup, we have the cup pieces for the foam, we have our back band pattern piece, as well as that center bridge piece. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you can go make your bra pattern now. And of course, stay tuned for part 2 next week, where I'll show you how to sew up the bra, and I will see you in the next one.